No, I assumed, I'm not going to lie to you, I assumed the Chicago Sky was going to bring her back. But maybe she wants to leave.
It's not the type of drama that Chennedy Carter recently revealed about the Chicago Sky dressing room, a S1 could anticipate from a professional basketball team.
That we're seeing. We're not seeing great plays happen. We're seeing all these fights now. Like
tension in the locker room, shocking allegations about the safety of the players, and yes, Carter is disclosing some very personal information before departing the Chicago Sky. Did things really become that messy?
Thing for Caitlin Clark, who had to sit out most of the game yesterday because she was hurt, and so was Aaliyah Boss.
If you thought the world of professional basketball was just about the game, think again. Beneath the surface, chaos is brewing, and Carter's recent revelations expose a side of the WNBA that most fans never see, from safety concerns to tensions with teammates and even questions about leadership. Behind closed doors, it's complete chaos, with everyone raising their eyebrows. But it gets juicier. Remember the moment she hit Caitlin Clark because her playoff match didn't exactly go as planned? Now she's leaking all the SEC about the dressing room, and while the team's authority is kicking her out, she's playing it off like she's just walking away on her own terms.
Clark wasn't even in the league, and now she's in the spotlight, and it's a harsh spotlight because of what she did, and obviously, I think we agree it was
been in the news for a week.
Chennedy Carter, who is well known for her unquestionable skill and outspoken demeanor, is no stranger to controversy, but this time it seems different and the stakes are higher. Carter has exposed deeper problems that might be undermining the team's foundation, and she isn't doing it quietly. She hasn't just called out a single instance or a specific colleague.
The Chicago Sky's bus arrived at their hotel in Washington yesterday. A man with a camera approached Chennedy Carter and, according to other players, used some abusive language.
While living at a hotel with her colleagues, one of the more startling things she's talked about occurred off the court, but it speaks much about the environment these athletes are navigating. Carter described an unsettling incident in which a guy with a camera came up to her.
The players on the team are saying that this is harassment. The man was mainly talking to Chennedy Carter.
In her own words, Carter clarified that we simply want to feel safe as players. That's not asking for much, as its safety should be the bare minimum for athletes at this level, but it seems like even that basic expectation isn't being met. This wasn't just a fan hoping for a quick photo. It was unsettling enough that security had to intervene.
Security quickly de-escalated the situation. Police were not called, but several Sky players said Carter was.
Consider the implications on team morale. You can guarantee that Carter is not alone in her concerns if she is speaking out about this. These kinds of events frequently follow a bigger pattern and have an influence on not just the people immediately engaged, but also everyone in their immediate vicinity.
The WNBA, with all of this hype leading into it, has turned into a reality show on Bravo, honestly.
This leads us back to the administration of Chicago Skies and their response to this. To yet, there hasn't been much public recognition, but silence speaks louder than words. Damage management is only one aspect of it. Another is demonstrating their willingness to make adjustments to prevent this from happening in the future. The Chicago Sky dressing room is actually becoming more than simply a location for players to get ready for games. It sounds like a pressure cooker with unsolved conflicts and tensions brewing.
With the teammates, we're going to keep talking about this all year long until she does something about it, makes an example out of somebody, or one of her teammates make an example out of somebody, but this is got to stop. But you got to understand at the same time.
Whether it's because she's the most vocal or the most convenient scapegoat, Carter has become the face of this debate for better or worse. It's evident that she's not scared to point out what she perceives to be issues. Carter's talent is evident, but her outspoken personality seems to be at odds with the crew as the drama in the Chicago skyline develops layer by layer.
I mean, that's clearly a foul, which was called. The question is, will they call it unnecessary? Chennedy Carter.
During a game against the Indiana Fever, Carter's flagrant fall on Caitlin Clark was one of the most obvious instances, sending shockwaves around the WNBA.
Women who are older than you, better than you on your team, but if they see that you are a young star and you're doing really well, they will do whatever they can do to sabotage your success.
For those who weren't acquainted with it, the foul swiftly became a topic of conversation off the court in addition to being a contentious moment on it. Carter was positioned as the antagonist and Clark, a rising star and fan favorite, as the victim. This wasn't a unique incident. There are reports that there are deeper issues in the locker room since Carter and Angel Reese have different personalities. If the allegations are accurate, this conflict might be causing a poisonous atmosphere that makes it more difficult for the squad to work together.
To be defined by one moment, but right now it's the moment, and it hasn't been a terrible thing for the league. It's actually created a lot of buzz about this.
Although the Chicago Sky may appear to be united, these instances raise the issue of whether the team is cultivating a poisonous culture.
Chennedy Carter wasn't even in the league, and now she's in the spotlight, and it's a harsh spotlight because of what she did. And
it appears that the team is letting these tensions fester, which will ultimately hurt everyone involved if Carter's outspoken nature is viewed as a problem rather than an asset. This speaks poorly of the organization's capacity to manage strong personalities.
The silver lining here is the people really are starting to care about this
One
league.
of the most talked about subplots in the Chicago Sky drama is the tension between Chandler and Angel Reese. It's difficult to distinguish fact from conjecture because there have been rumors of a falling out between these two elite players for weeks. But what's stoking the flames when neither player has openly acknowledged the tension? Two large egos colliding in a place too tiny to contain is shown by the whispers pouring out of the locker room.
Doubled off to Carter. Her jumper is good. Chennedy Carter now with 12 points off the bench.
Star athletes at UNC don't frequently butt heads. Carter, who averages 17 points per game and is a powerhouse in her own right, isn't one to back down. But Reese, with her magnetic personality and unapologetic manner, has become one of the NBA's greatest stars.
It's gotten pretty absurd, and it's honestly downright embarrassing to see how the WNBA and the media coverage of the WNBA.
According to accounts, the conflict is caused by differences in leadership styles rather than merely basketball. Others, however, bring up personal disputes. Carter's outspoken style occasionally comes across as confrontational, and Reese is rumored to prefer a more team-oriented approach. When coupled with the team's larger issues, such as criticism of coach Teresa Weatherspoon's handling of player dynamics, the situation feels like a powder keg ready to explode.
People know she's becoming almost a household name, I think, to a league where a lot of fans probably didn't even know who she was for a while. Even though she
have chosen sides, with some applauding Carter's direct style and others seeing her as disruptive. For her part, Reese has upheld her reputation as a cooperative team player, which further supports the idea that Carter is the issue.
You're saying she's being too nice.
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. She's going to have to make an example.
I'll buy that.
She's going to have to make an example out of somebody at some point.
The guy has the right to match whatever contract she receives. But with all that has happened, would they even want to, and more importantly, does Carter want to stay? All of this puts Carter at a crossroads as a restricted free agent, and her career in the WNBA is on the line. Her Instagram post asking followers for ideas for her next squad wasn't only a request for support. Rather, it was a statement that she was prepared to move on.
Chennedy Carter definitely wants to get out of Chicago. Could she possibly be interested in joining Caitlin Clark in the Fever? That's what we finna
Carter may join the Indiana Fever, a team that features Caitlin Clark, the player she clashed with during that infamous flagrant foul incident. On paper, this seems unlikely because Carter's on-court altercation with Clark was one of the season's most contentious moments, drawing criticism from both her coach and fans. However, basketball is a business, and talent frequently outweighs personal grievances.
We're talking 17 points per game last season. That's no joke. You'd think the Sky would be doing everything they can to keep a player like that, right? But something's not adding
up. For the
up.
Fever, adding Carter to their roster could be a game changer because, at just 24, she has already shown that she is capable of performing at an elite level, averaging 17 points per game despite all the off-court distractions. However, the question still stands, Can Carter move past her past conflicts and collaborate with someone she once publicly clashed with? Let's take a moment to zoom out on Chennedy Carter. She isn't just airing dirty laundry here. She's revealing that she feels unsafe and disrespected, but the league has red flags that are waving like crazy in the wind, from player safety to team culture. There is so much that cannot be disregarded.
Sad that the WNBA, with all of this hype leading into it, has turned into a reality show on
Accountability that
Bravo.
keeps teams and the league itself accountable for fostering a healthy environment for athletes is the unspoken issue. When it comes to contracts and statistics, openness is fantastic, but what about the welfare of the players? Carter's predicament has prompted inquiries that go much more than her Instagram stories. There is no going back to business as usual. Carter is not the type to let things quietly blow over, and neither is the public. Therefore, it is time for the WNBA to examine itself and determine where it is failing. Where does this leave us? And more importantly, where does this leave Chennedy Carter and the Chicago Sky?
Men would rather lose a game and make sure that their star player that they're jealous of doesn't play well by not passing her the ball, sabotaging her. They would rather lose a game and see their star not play.
The Sky's urgent challenge. How can they address Carter's claims without making matters worse? It is not an option to ignore her. She is too gifted and outspoken for that, but genuinely supporting her might require them to acknowledge some awkward realities about their own culture and management. It's a lose-lose circumstance. They place themselves here, to be honest. But the true issue is whether this is Carter's story and the beginning of something greater. Will other players feel encouraged to share their own stories? Or will this just be another story that fades away until the next major scandal?